Hello and welcome to your creativity workouts for art and for life. Today's video is all about using 2x4s, 2x6s, and other pieces of leftover scrap wood as printing blocks to create some prints. So let's get started. Okay, let's see. This is going to be in. And as you can see, these 2x4s come with all sorts of really cool marks already set into them. And when we roll the ink on top, you can get something really cool. However, we can even add to it with a chisel and a hammer. No need to use any fancy printmaking tools or expensive printmaking tools, just a hammer, a chisel, and some leftover 2x4s, and this is a 2x6. Anything that you can find lying around, this one's still got dirt on it, will work and make some really cool prints. So let's get started. First by cutting out our block. See what we can come up with here. I'm going to be pretty random about this. Cut out little bits and pieces. As usual with my work, I have started without a plan. I do not know what my design is going to be. And I'm learning how the wood grain sort of works as I go along here. It's all an experiment. Okay, I think we're going to leave this area for now, and we're going to try something on this side and see what we can come up with. One side a little smoother. There's this side that has a big hump cut out of it right here, and it's really, really rough. Now, find something else. There's a little board, and it seems to be smoother with a finer grain, so we'll see what happens when I chop some stuff out of that. And maybe I can use some other tools to make marks. For instance, a Phillips screwdriver. Old file, nice and rusty. squares. Okay, time to tackle the 2x6. I'm going to start by cutting out a large rectangular area. Normally when you're creating print blocks, you don't want to create wide open areas like this because it's likely to hold some ink. But I am going to risk it. I know it will hold some ink, but it will also create some open areas. And since I'm not being particular about exactly what I'm going to create, I'm just going to try it and see what happens. Most of the time you want to create smaller lines like I'm doing right here. Okay, I'm going to finish it off with a couple of whacks with the hammer for some good dents. Okay, time to print our blocks. These are the materials I'm going to be using to print with. A brayer or a roller in the upper left corner, and next to that is what's called a baren for rubbing on the paper. I've got 3 colors of ink here, and I lost my palette knife, don't know where it is, so I'm using a kitchen knife. And you can use a variety of different kind of inks. I am using Canfield Relief ink here. It's a water washable ink. That's a ultramarine blue, and we have a yellow ochre and a burnt sienna. And now I'm going to pull out a big hunk of this ultramarine blue. This ink is very old. I haven't used it in a while, and it's kind of chunky. But for the kind of blocks that we're going to be printing, I don't need to be extremely particular about the ink. It doesn't need to go on in a super thin layer. So this old ink will work just fine. And this is some yellow ochre. It's in a lot better shape. Oh, actually, that was the burnt sienna. This is the yellow ochre. And I am going to roll out a bunch of this ink. You take the brayer and you roll it out until you get into a nice thin sheet of ink, and it gets all over the brayer. And with this old blue ink, I'm not getting too particular. And now we just roll it onto the printing block. And you can see that it goes over the raised areas and it leaves the other areas without any ink on them. And because this is a really rough 2x4, I am going to use a lot of my old lumpy ink. And this is a sheet of freezer paper. Yes, I'm printing on freezer paper because number one, I'm just testing this process out. And number two, I often print on freezer paper. It works just fine. I don't always have to have fancy paper to print on. And you take the baren and you rub it over the surface to make sure that it gets printed nicely. And as you can see earlier there, I had just been using a glue bottle. Basically anything, you can rub with anything. Now I'm going to try on this cool edge of the 2x4. Look at that pattern. That's kind of cool that it's creating right there. Just going to put some more blue ink on here. And I'm going to use another piece of freezer paper to print on. In no particular shape, as you can see. Just long enough that most of the 2x4 is covered. And you can rub with a spoon, you can rub with your hand, you can rub with a bottle, you can rub with the baren, you can rub with anything that will rub properly. And look at that, that's kind of cool. You can see that that was the edge of a 2x4. And now what I'm going to do is I am going to put some of that yellow ochre in there without cleaning off the brayer. So basically I'm mixing up the green with the blue and the yellow. And I'm going to put that over the top without actually worrying that there is already ink on there. I'm basically mixing the colors this way. And we will put that paper back over this one. Overlap it just a tiny bit to see what happens when the two prints mix. Cool. Now we have a dark green, a blue, and a little blue-green in the middle. And this is what's called a ghost print, when you do a second print without adding any more ink. It'll be a little bit lighter, maybe, and it's also a little blue or green. And here's another ghost print. You can keep doing this till you run out of ink and you don't no longer getting any impressions or images. We'll try this one now. I'm going to work with the burnt sienna to start with. And notice how I'm just rolling out. First I'm pulling down, then I'm pulling across just to make sure I get ink over the entire surface of my brayer, which is the roller. And you can see that I still had some green on there, which is cool. I'm just mixing all three of these colors together. They should all blend nicely. And you can see that the surface of the wood is creating as much of the image as the stuff that I actually carved into it. Now I'm going to put on a little greenish yellow in certain areas, just to sort of give it a little bit of different color here and there so that it's not the same color over the entire block. Which is fine if you want to do that too. It doesn't really matter. I'm just playing with this to see what I can come up with. Put some freezer paper over this. It kind of sticks when you first put it on because printing ink is very sticky. It's a lot stickier than oil paint or acrylic paint. It's very sticky. Ooh, what do we got here? That looks kind of cool. So we're going to add some more. Oh, here's a different block. Okay, this is the little block and the grain in it is really fine. It's the cool thing there. You can see those little dots I created. And we'll see what this looks like on this one. Yep, you can see the fine grain there. Kind of cool. Okay, back to this one. I'm going to add some more color. I'm just looking at these in different ways and seeing if maybe I can kind of like merge them together at some point. I don't know yet. I'm going to pull out some more of this old gooey blue ink that, even though it looks like it's all worn out and unusable, is perfect for this purpose. And I'm going to put some blue on here, which is going to bring out the green, I guess. And you can rub lightly or you can rub, with a stronger pressure to get a different effect. Okay, those are overlapped and you can see there's a little green where it overlaps. It's kind of cool the way the colors mix together that way. And I'm trying to get some of the blue off the brayer. And now I'm putting some yellow on to make it a little bit of a brighter green color. See what happens. Cool.